I've never heard the Mongols referred to as a community, but fair enough. By your definition of community, they are a community, a very, very big, vicious community. But fair enough.
Maybe it is not a willing community. Probably it's an enslaved community.
Jeremiah, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, man. It's been a while since we last spoke, but here we go. So let me just do a quick introduction about Jeremiah, who is someone that I worked with for quite a bit, and someone that I think has had an amazing journey that we kind of want to share a little bit about that, but also kind of learn a lot from what he's doing, what he's learned, and what he's been able to do for a lot of people out there. So Jeremiah is a business owner, agency owner. He has official team cheerleader for everyone. He's a content creator, LinkedIn expert, and also he kind of trains and runs workshops and community build. I think something that's really important and something we want to dive into. Okay, let's just jump straight into it, man, because I've got a lot of questions I want to ask you. So let's kind of dive into your journey. So what are some of the things that kind of led you down this path, and what are some of the things that you might have changed in your journey so far?
Thanks so much, Teng, for inviting me on this podcast. So, what led me to this point in my life? I would say that it's a series of fortunate events. But I would say that everything that I did from my course of study, which was mass communications, and then majoring in documentary film productions, coming out to do TV commercials, work on movie sets, TV shows, and then eventually starting my company in 2014. I think all of these individual life milestones or situations has led me to where I am today. I have amassed a lot of different skill sets for me to be able to eventually get into the groove and momentum of being a teacher, a mentor, and a community builder. That's the first response to your first question. Okay. Second response is, would I change anything? Probably not, because I always believe that everything happens for a reason. So everything that has happened in my life has brought me to where I am today.
That's great to hear that actually, but I don't think you'd change anything because regrets are regrets for a reason, and maybe they are learning opportunity as well. One thing that I kind of want to talk to you about, and you brought it up as well, was really like being a like building communities, right? Because I think the term community is a little bit lost. Maybe like the true definition of it, or maybe the understanding and the nuance around it is lost a little bit. I'm guilty of overusing that term a lot. Let's build you an online community and stuff like that. I kind of want to get in your experience, right? When you talk to people, like what do they get right or wrong? Mostly wrong about building communities and understanding the value of communities.
So if I were to define the word community, right, in the local context of Singapore, this word has been around ever since the formation of our country, right? Community centers, which are basically physical establishments where people living around this community center can come together for activities, for relationship building, and things like that. But in recent times, right, how this word actually came about to become like a popularized buzzword is when creators wanted to have a place to monetize or to galvanize their fan base. So in the past, if we were to look at the evolution and etymology of this word, in the past it would be things like followers, it would be things like fan club. But how I view community is culture. So what that means, right, when I say culture, is that in my own organization, in my own company, I've always believed in a tribe mentality. A tribe is made up of individuals striving and working towards a common goal. And this common goal can be a mission and a purpose. So when I was building my company since 2014, from me being a solopreneur to eventually having like 35 staff, I always believe in the power of culture. And culture is something that a community has, which is a common understanding, a common value system, or a common goal from different walks of life, races, religion, or even geography that comes together for a singular common purpose. Now, to me, I've always believed in community because when we look back at history, people of influence, people of power have a community backing them, and they have influence and power to effect change, whether good or bad. I mean, I can bring up a lot of examples. We have the greats like Genghis Khan. He had an amazing community, conquered like one third of the world.
I've never heard the Mongols referred to as a community, but fair enough. By your definition of community, they are a community, a very very big vicious community. But fair enough.
Maybe it is not a willing community. Probably it's an enslaved community, but they all had a common goal, which is world domination and conquer. But of course, you have other people backed by amazing communities like our Lee Kuan Yew, right? He had an amazing community which helped him build and have Singapore what it is today. So this word community, I 100% agree with you. It has become a bit convoluted and it has lost its real meaning. But when we look at it, the bare foundations of this word
Mhm.
is really people with a common goal.
Oh no, that's fair. And I think that's a really good way of looking at communities as well, because we shouldn't be thinking of communities as everybody under same on the same platform or in a same group with a vague title. It's really about whether they kind of buy into the vision and the mission and the kind of the story behind it, right? I mean, kind of leaning on that, right? Have you come across any clients or like any potential customers or clients that have reached out to build communities? Is that something that people have asked you to do?
Well, when it comes to client work, right? So to give a bit of context to the viewers or listeners, Superminted is my branding and marketing agency, right? And we do a lot of campaigning of brand activation, right? Brand activation, you can see it as marketing, as public relations, or communications as a whole. Now, when it comes to community building, we have had one of our anchor retainer clients in the F&B space where they actually gave us an OKR, objective and key result. The objective is to build a community of home chefs. Key results being increased sales, increased conversations through social listening, and increased gatherings within supermarkets. So yes, we've had clients come to us specifically for community building, but then they don't usually say community building. They will say things like, "Oh, build our social media, build our footfall or traffic when it comes to road shows or brand activations." So it is not common though, where brands actually specifically come to my agency to ask for community building. It is usually like a secondary fringe fulfillment, with the main one always being sales and revenue.
That's something I've never actually truly understood because, to be honest, if you have a strong community, sales and revenue will come. If people buy into what you're saying, if people understand what you're doing, which is why I've always kind of I'm trying to use the right words because I don't want to come off as being very hard. Since we're going to be publicly putting this out there, I think what I usually come across is a reluctance to understand that your brand has to be able to sell itself versus constantly trying to force something down someone's throat and thinking you can convince someone to buy something they don't want to buy. You got to make them want to buy. They're always going to come back to you, whatever it is. B2B, B2C, doesn't really matter, right? They need to buy into your story. And I think at least there's a positive sign for me, right? So I'm just going to talk from my perspective. The younger entrepreneurs that I'm meeting now, so the businesses that are maybe not, 100 years of history behind them, they understand it. They grew up they grew up loving the story of brands and make them on it. So I think we're seeing a bit of a change here. I think it's a little bit slow, at least in Southeast Asia, but we are seeing a change, and maybe not talking so much about community, but really talking about how brands feel like they need to own their social media platforms and communities and create content out there. Have you seen anything? And I'm sure you have. But have you seen any ones that have done like they've created their own content? They think they're doing amazingly, but they just do really terrible content out there. I can name 100, but I'm not going to because business. But like, have you seen brands that just seem to constantly push stuff out there, but they're really getting it wrong.
Yes, I definitely have seen. And the trap with that, or the rabbit hole that they fall into, is the notion and assumption that, oh, you know what? If I were to put out a lot of content, it will hit someone. The understanding of, spray and pray no longer works, because in this day and age, people want personalization, right? There are brands out there that have hyper personalization, and they speak to a specific audience with a specific message. And I have a brand, top of mind, that I feel is doing very well, Nippon Paint. Now, Nippon Paint as a brand, people always think, okay, you know what, painting, right? But if you go into their TikTok, you realize they do trend jacking, they do content that is weird, but they have a very, very acute understanding of their target audience. And they create specifically for their target audience, because they have the understanding that the future consumers of Nippon Paint might not be the current consumers like us. I mean, I'm not young, I'm not old. But the people who are the emerging affluent, the ones who are on these platforms, they are the ones who are consuming content. They are the ones resharing content. And Nippon Paint does it very well, because they do super random stuff. They'll get their mascot, which is a sumo, to do like dances, to do trends, very demure, very mindful, random stuff like that. But then it resonates with that current audience, and that current audience will eventually grow up. And when they grow up, they will remember Nippon Paint the next time they buy their house, the next time they do restoration or refurbishment, things like that. When it comes to owning your content, especially for brands, what they try to do is to put as much out there, but it is not really hitting the mark.
That's fair enough. I think you were very measured and you were very kind to a lot of brands out there. Nippon Paint's a really interesting example. I've seen some of this stuff. I think it's quite cool. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. They understood that the customers of tomorrow may not necessarily be the same customers of today, so they've got to kind of future proof themselves a little bit. Also, I'll give you an example, right? Of so I spoke to a brand that was looking at, so they got into a little bit of trouble on social. They said a couple of stuff they shouldn't have said. They always feel like they're a little bit cutting edge with their ads and stuff like that, and things they're putting out there, so they've got a strong social following. And what I would tell them is like that's great. You should definitely continue that, but you have to be smart in kind of building the audience that you want. Because they were very everything they did was extremely short term gain. They never built a brand. So people were like, that's cool, I like it, but you didn't understand what the brand was. So it was never about creating that association. It was really about driving that, the revenue and the sales. And the first thing that happens is the moment that things had to change, the moment there was an issue, right, revenue crashes, because people don't know the brand. A lot of times they see the content, they don't even know that there's anything behind it, which again is fine if you're looking at, if you are doing something that has a long-term goal in mind. But there was nothing that they did that has a long-term goal in mind. They weren't even trying to do like, they were trend jacking for the wrong reason. And it was a very interesting conversation I had with them, because I'm like, I want you guys to do weirder stuff, but y'all are fighting me on that. It's kind of working, but you're spending so much money. Then like where are you going with it? So I always felt like brands look at content. Right now, a lot of the brands look at content as kind of a means to end versus the main tool of marketing. Like, let's bring it back, right? It's building that community of people that understand, have the same feeling, have the same understanding. Yeah, I mean that's interesting. What are you feeling about then kind of having like brands looking at influencers and working with influencers? Like, is that something that you think is a good direction?
Well, when it comes to influencership, I've always believed in UGC, but influencer marketing is evolving. Okay, so let me explain. In the past, historically, a brand will reach out to an influencer for their reach, right? Or 1 million followers or whatever. Spend probably a 5-figure sum on this one person, and then hope that their message gets received by their 1 million followers. I mean, that worked for a while, but then it kind of moved from mega influencership to now like nano or atom influencers, right? I rather engage 100 people, 100 creators or influencers that each have 1,000 followers or something, but it's very specific to their niche or their community. Nowadays, what works or what I have observed to really do very well is to have a brand message and then get the influencer or the creator to resonate. Because if you see, right, if we take for example a hair brand, if they are able to showcase that, hey, you know what, we have managed to build a community of super fans. These super fans now become ambassadors,
Yeah.
cheerleaders, and the mouthpiece community for that brand. And the
Yeah.
brand, all they need to do is to sustain this community, do good by them, and this community will always become their army. Okay.
Mhm.
So if we were to look at it from a different business category point of view, BTS, everybody knows BTS, right? I don't know any of their songs, okay? But what is their fan club called? Army. The fan club is literally called
That's
Army.
true.
And I always use the analogy of music and brand community. Ed Sheeran started out basking by the side of the street, some random ginger nobody gives a flying fish about. And now he commands sold out stadiums, still doing the same thing, playing guitar, but like to a stadium of 100,000 people. That is his community. And he's able to galvanize this army to do whatever he wants. So how brands are evolving right now is, I give you a very good example. Cadbury is very clever. They created a portal, okay, called Cadbury Flix, which is kind of like Netflix. The interface is very similar to Netflix, and it's all about Cadbury content. So what they do is they curate their community, people who maybe does chocolate recipes, or Candice, they have Easter eggs, right? So they have a whole series of people just opening up mystery Easter eggs and things like that. And the whole platform and channel is everything from the community for the community, which I always use as a case study as amazing brand community management and creation. Other brands should take a playbook from Cadbury's tools and yeah, use that as influencer marketing, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. That perspective is quite interesting because one thing that we do in the company is we do recommend that we work with a variety of influencers and we try not to script everything, especially since there is a massive overlap on the influencers that you use. And if you see the same influencer repeating the same thing, you kind of lose that authenticity aspect to it, right? I mean, I'd rather them just have their what however they normally speak, right? My one of the favorite things I've seen is, and again, this is not a good example, but I just think it's hilarious, is if you know the comedian Bill Burr, he has a podcast which he just records by himself. He's a famous American comedian. Bill Burr doesn't care about anything. So his favorite thing is he gets emails from the advertisers on what to say. He looks at it, he reads the email verbatim, and if he doesn't like the brand, he'll just mock it. If he likes the brand, he'll be like, yeah, they're all right. And he's lost so many advertisers. But the thing is, he makes so much money from his Netflix specials, from his touring. He doesn't care. And advertisers still flock to him. But advertisers keep on dropping him because he keeps on insulting this stuff all the time. In a way, that kind of works because I'll just say this. I know some brands that I would never have heard of just because Bill Burr made fun of them. Honestly, I'm not of the opinion that all publicity is good publicity, but I'm also saying that sometimes it's not that bad. You have to be authentic, not make it authentic, just be authentic. Just be say like, hey, if you like my product, do you want to work with us? We'll do it. If you do, we can pay you, we can do all the stuff, but you have to like what we do. If you don't like what we do, that's cool, right? But I mean, hey, one day maybe if people want to sponsor us, just give me free stuff. Okay, let's switch tracks a bit because let's talk about you as an influencer then. Because I think on LinkedIn, you do put out a lot of content out there, right? I've seen all the stuff you put up. You're gaining significant traction. Your posts are showing up. You're getting a lot of impressions. I don't have the numbers on hand, but I saw you getting a lot of engagement on your LinkedIn post, right? What First of all, it's a two-part question, right? First of all, how effective as a platform do you think LinkedIn is really, like, based on what it was a few years ago versus what it is now? And the second bit is, how is LinkedIn going down the same path as every other social media platform, where it was super authentic and fun, to now being kind of this place where people trying to hack that they're trying to hack the algorithm 99% of the time? Like, where do you see things going with LinkedIn, man?
To answer your first question, right? My biggest deal size from LinkedIn is $300,000. And that came from 3 years of putting out content and building my personal brand and reputation on LinkedIn. So does it work? I mean, not bad, right? That's a very good ROI in my book, $300,000. This person reached out to me and said, hey, I've been seeing your post, very cool. Can we jump on a call? I want to ask a bit about branding. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. It sounded like almost like, oh, this person is going to sell me services and whatnot, SEO,
Yeah.
or management. I was like, but whatever, just, you never know who you're going to have a chat to. So when I had a conversation with her, she actually said, oh, I'm actually looking for someone to rebrand my company that I'm working for. It is 150 years old. The third generation is taking over, and they want to refresh the entire organizational look, because it is a sunset industry. It's very traditional. They wanted to spice things up. And after conversations with myself, with my business partners, sealed the deal, right? And it really, I'm not boasting when I say this, but it really started with my personal reputation and personal brand on LinkedIn. So does LinkedIn work? Hell yes, man. For me, okay, it works for me. It might not work for a lot of people, but this is where you need to understand LinkedIn as a platform. Is it changing for good? Too soon to say, because LinkedIn recently has been pushing a lot of video functions, came up with its own infinite scroll function and video suggestions in your news feed. From my observation, right, when it first came out, people didn't know it existed, because when you go into video, LinkedIn will keep prompting you to, scroll for more. And then they started to push video very, very rampantly, with people getting as high as a few thousand views, which is pretty high. And then suddenly, recently, they removed the view count on LinkedIn. So I feel that LinkedIn as a platform, it is still trying to find its groove when it comes to content, because as a platform, it is very, very focused on professionalism, recruitment, and of course, value, right? I always tell people go onto LinkedIn to invest their time to learn something, but they waste or they spend their time on other platforms to be entertained. I would say that LinkedIn is almost going through the same phase as what Facebook used to be in the past. But then my observation is that LinkedIn is starting to become a bit of a wet market of toxic positivity, because everybody is all like, "Ooh, success, yay!" It is so much so that there is a market of people who do shit posting. And shit posting is basically mocking the whole LinkedIn, like, to make your acquaintance, I would love to be added into your network, things like that. And it is becoming inflated. The authenticity is no longer authentic. It is manufactured and engineered.
Yeah.
Right? So much so that for myself, my own persona is that I'm very rebellious. I mean, I sometimes talk a lot of things on LinkedIn that people have said, oh, this feels like a Facebook kind of post. And I'm like, cool, thanks for your engagement. But it has really given rise to people who are just like, wow, FTS, what does that mean? Go and Google, Urban Dictionary. But they are like, you know what? Let me just share my failures instead of my successes. Let me share my building in public, which I feel has actually more value than just like, oh, these are 10 ways you can increase your LinkedIn engagement, which after a while, it almost seems like everyone who is creating content on LinkedIn or posting on LinkedIn are an expert themselves, which means we are the consumers, right? So these are just my thoughts on LinkedIn. But don't get me wrong, Teng, I still feel there is a value on LinkedIn, and you just need to understand how you can use LinkedIn as a reputation management platform, and then all the rest of the other platforms as a way to repurpose or portfolio content. Yep, that's my thoughts.
I love the fact that you said that LinkedIn kind of doesn't know where it's going with it yet. I think that's great. That's honestly not something I was thinking of. So that gives me pause because I need to look into it. And you're probably right. Uh,
No, but interesting thing, because it is still trying to find its groove, creators who adopt LinkedIn as their platform of choice for content will definitely have the first mover advantage. Because if you
Mhm.
write, if you just put a simple video out there, you are already part of the 5% who are creating on LinkedIn.
I get that. I get that. I think you're right. The thing is, I just don't think it's as important as it once was because the audience on LinkedIn right now is probably not the same audience that was there like 5, 10 years ago, where it was I would say 10 years ago, because in 10 years ago, if you got a lot of engagement, these were generally people looking for something. They're probably trying to sell you something too, but you were more likely to come across someone authentically, like saying, "Oh, cool, I should really like this. I might buy something from you. I might contact you for you might get some lead generation." Now it's just a bunch of people who are just liking it for engagement, to create conversation, for self engagement, right? It's like Instagram. It's like TikTok. Nobody's in it to really find something. At least from a content creator standpoint, they're in it to gain engagement for themselves. I still think there are tons of opportunity there if you just do really good content. But right now, if you really look at how it's working and what it would take to get a lot of people do to get a ton of engagement on LinkedIn, as you mentioned, it's this weird type of baiting each other. So it's just really about getting that. People are trying to get that they're trying to create that kind of space for themselves, that influencer standpoint on LinkedIn, when LinkedIn used to just really be about sharing about business stuff, right? If people were trying to be content creators, they were like, if I don't add value, no one would give a shit about me. But
Mm.
now they're like, I'll do this long ass post. It won't really say much, but it'll hit all the buttons people wanted to hit. It'll celebrate things that they want to celebrate. It'll be humbling, so it'll be a little bit self-deprecating, and people are gonna flock to it like maggots. That sounds really negative. I shouldn't say maggots, but like they'll flock to it, right? Like bees to honey,
Yep, yep,
like
yep.
bees to honey. So it's a little bit. I don't know. I sometimes I look at it and sometimes I wonder. Like I'm not that old, but I feel like I'm 200 years old. I somehow missed a generation of things happening, and it's a bit sad.
You know, I agree with you on certain points, but what I believe is that LinkedIn, it boils down to two things, right? The first thing is the value or impact that you can bring. Likewise, on any platform, if you are narcissistic, full of vanity, then yeah, of course, eventually you'll die out. But it is the same with any platform. If you're able to still give value to build yourself up as some form of authority or domain expert, people will still reach out to you or follow you for whatever it may be, right? For entertainment, education, information, or inspiration. That's the first thing. Always give value to your audience. But the second thing about LinkedIn that differs from every single platform out there is that LinkedIn is the only platform that allows you direct access to key decision makers.
Mhm.
So you can use your search or advanced filtering to look for specific people that you want to have a conversation with, whoever they may be, part of your ICP, ideal customer profile, right? No other platform gives you that access. And of course, with LinkedIn Sales Navigator, it also allows you to have even more focused tailoring to your funneling and lead generation. So I don't quite agree with you there that LinkedIn is becoming a bit overcrowded with people who just want to have engagement, there is still a subsect or a category of people who are adding value, and also people who can give you direct access, whatever it may be. But that's what I use it for, when I want to look for specific people.
No, that's fair enough. It's perspectives, right? It's
Yeah,
perspectives because
yeah.
I think maybe I had a higher expectation of what LinkedIn was versus what it's become now. Because when I use LinkedIn, like if I got 20 likes on something, I can guarantee it'll be 20 people. At least like 80% of them would be like legit. They're interested in what I shared, interested in what I said, or were actually genuinely happy to see me share something. Yeah.
Right, right.
Now I'm not sure. Now I'm not sure. Because I could get like 80 and I'll be like, 100 or whatever it is, right? And then I'll be like, how many people are just trying to sell me something when I say hey, thanks for engaging? They're like, cool. Have you heard of our new AI tool? I think maybe I'm just a little bit jaded. You're right. I'm a little bit jaded. I still think like I said, I'm still bullish on LinkedIn. I said
Yep.
that. I'm bullish on LinkedIn.
Yep,
I
yep.
just feel like there are things going on that maybe pushing it down different pathways. I hopefully they'll course correct in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey man, I don't want to take too much of your time, but because also our podcast isn't that long. But do you have anything you want to share? Anything that you want to kind of tell people? Anything that maybe I didn't ask you that you think is interesting enough?
The one thing that I have been preaching all this time, even more so now, is that we are in the age of dehumanization. When I say dehumanization, AI is kind of like not only enabling and empowering, but also polluting the current landscape of content. So if you are a creator, if you are a business owner, or even if you are a random normie or a muggle, right? My recommendation is always be creating, whatever it may be, Instagram stories or LinkedIn posts, right? Because by building in public and showcasing your humanity, you're actually able to really increase your personal reputation and brand, whatever it may be, even if you're an executive working for a company. Because, right, your corporate identity is temporary. Your job title is temporary. If you are part of a tech conglomerate, 6 months down the road, they might lay you off, and then what's gonna be? Are you still gonna be like, oh, ex Facebook, ex Meta, ex Amazon?
Yeah,
People won't care. People won't care. But if you have a personal brand representing something, whether is it SEO expert, engineering guru, or even branding and marketing specialist, that is a skill set that can be brought with you permanently anywhere you go, because that is your legacy. So if I were to give any words of wisdom, is always create. Look at traditionalists like Tony Robbins or even Richard Branson. My God, they are pushing out a lot of content right now in the digital environment because they understand that traditional means of communication is no longer the best way to communicate. You need to make sure that you build your digital footprint right now. So that is my word of wisdom for y'all.
Hey, thanks a lot for sharing, Jeremiah. That was really cool. I think you said a lot of stuff that's quite interesting. Always be creating, always be building that personal brand and legacy is kind of important. I'm seeing a lot. To be fair, I'm seeing a lot more younger people do that quite well. I think they're building it up for themselves. They're starting to at least. So that's really exciting to hear, man. All right. Hey, thanks a lot, Jeremiah. I mean, we'll end the podcast now, but I think there's a lot of really interesting insights. What I'll do is we'll share all your social media handles. We'll share everything that you kind of want us to, the community that you have as well, because I know you've got an amazing community too that people can kind of join. So I'll add that to links to everything that we do on all the platforms that we
Sure,
have.
man.
Yeah.
Happy to. If anybody wants to reach out, I'm most active on LinkedIn. You should know by now, based on my conversation with Teng, I love LinkedIn. But yeah, drop me a DM and let's have a conversation.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much, Jeremiah.